Good morning from Tampa. I can confirm that the sun has indeed risen. And I think it's important to take note of that the day after the 49ers tragically lost Fred Warner, likely for this entire 2025 season. When I was outlining how the 49ers were built over this really busy offseason leading up to this, I used the term foundational pillar a lot because the 49ers put a lot of emphasis on the load-bearing walls at each position room. They had an A-lister at each position room, and they filled it in with youngsters around them. But if you know anything about construction, and there's some construction noises outside the hotel today, hopefully my mic is good enough to not pick them up. I think it's fitting, though, because the 49ers have been under construction over the course of this season. But if you know anything about it, then it's the load-bearing walls, the foundational pillars. They're the ones that hold the building upright. And the 49ers defense has now lost two of its three load-bearing walls. Nick Bosa, now Fred Warner. Typically, if you just look at how something is built, you lose one of three, the other two might be able to hold it up. You lose two of three, all of a sudden you've got serious structural issues. And that's exactly what we saw in the game against Tampa yesterday. Now, the sun has risen, and you don't punt the season if you're San Francisco. You're still working with the young players whom you drafted. You still have a very, very exciting 2024 and 2025 draft crop. You are still in first place in the NFC West. I think some people need perspective here. The 49ers are 4-2, and they hold tiebreakers over both the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks with wins over both of those division rivals. And with 11 games left to play, a lot can still happen over the course of this season. Those teams can suffer injuries. The NFL landscape is extremely unpredictable. But if you're in the spirit of development, as the 49ers were entering this season, at the very least, get these young guys their first playoff game in 2025. Because then when you hit it in 2026, presumably with better health, and I guess I can't presume anything, but at least Upton Stout, who took a terrible angle on the Baker Mayfield run yesterday, Marquise Siegel, who got beaten by Tez Johnson a couple plays after that. He was the middle third safety. Even D. Winters, who's not a first-year player, but he was the one I think that didn't pick up Cameron Johnson on the motion touchdown in the first half off the Upton Stout blitz. At least for those guys, it won't be their first playoff game starting if you get to one in 2026 with more of your veteran pillars back around them. Like, at the very least, that's how you have to operate in the NFL. And the 49ers still have all of that in front of them because the formula for San Francisco on offense remains intact. Like, Brock Purdy's not out for the season. Not out for the season. They should also get Brandon Ayuk back at some point. And, of course, I think a huge one for the 49ers in as far as how they operate is George Kittle, and he should be back this next week against the Atlanta Falcons. But defensively, it's going to be fascinating how this team approaches what is next. The trade deadline's on November 4th, and a lot of people are looking at this really simplistically. They're saying, oh, well, the 49ers, all of a sudden, they need to back off of anything trade-related. They just need to let the young guys play and punt on this season, punt on any work to improve their team. And sorry, that's just not how it works. If the 49ers can add players who improve their prospects not only in 2025 but in 2026, they can and they should do so. The calculus just changes in as far as what the defense needs and how the 49ers should approach this on a present and future basis. And by that, I mean, I think you really need to look at players who are under contract through 2026, at least, when you're looking at the trade market. One of the good pieces of news for the 49ers when I'm looking at potential additions is that Robert Saleh's former team, the Jets, who are now 0-6, they have a couple players who might fit perfectly into what the 49ers need. Linebacker Quincy Williams and edge rusher Jermaine Johnson, they're both Robert Saleh guys. Jermaine Johnson was even drafted while Robert Saleh was there. Quincy Williams is a bit older. He's 29 years old, but he was a very, very important, coveted linebacker for Robert Saleh. Both of those guys on the Jets right now on that 0-6 team are under contract through 2026. Not just this season, but next season. And we saw how bad the Jets were yesterday. They cleaned house last year. They fired Robert Saleh after something that was a lot better, actually. They were 2-3 when they fired Robert Saleh after the London loss, embarrassed Woody Johnson, former U.S. ambassador to the U.K., in front of his British friends. This time they're 0-6. They managed only 82 yards of total offense in London. And I think if you're the Jets, and you have to listen if somebody like the 49ers called. And this is not, a 1-year rental. The 49ers have lost foundational pillars on defense. They need to start thinking about what this team is going to look like in 2026 as well. They need to make sure that the young guys are shepherded along this year. I mean, one of the big things is that Upton Stout, for example, on the 3rd and 14, where Baker Mayfield got away from Bryce Huff and Trevis Gibson. The unacceptable play, right, by the 49ers. But Upton Stout, I look at that, and even after Mayfield got away from the edge rushers, he was about 7 or 8 yards short of the first down line. And if Upton Stout just takes a backed off approach, a conservative approach, he either forces Mayfield out of bounds or he tackles him a good 3 or 4 yards short of the first down line. Instead, he dives at his ankles, takes the highest degree of difficulty tackle possible, and Baker Mayfield is able to dodge it and dive for the first down. Upton Stout made that mistake without a Fred Warner on the field guiding him along. Like, after that play, Fred Warner would be able to tell Upton Stout, hey, next time this is the angle that you take. The defensive linemen, the young defensive linemen, are making their mistakes without Nick Bosa on the field. I think the growth process is made more difficult and also lengthened when you don't have your guiding foundational pillars on the field. So if you want to speed up the growth process, find some other pillars if you're the 49ers. If there are players, if there's veteran leadership that you can get that simultaneously can make you stronger in that next season. I think the 49ers could use Quincy Williams in 2026. I think that they could use Jermaine Johnson in 2026. If that fits your Robert Saleh system, if there could be somebody who conveys the coaching message to the youngsters on the field, the 49ers should absolutely go for it. And again, let's not act like their formula for 2025, the current season, has completely flown out the window. We knew entering this year that the 49ers would have to be excellent offensively, that the offense would have to be the locomotive that pulls the train. Well, they've got to get their QB1 back. They've got to get a future Hall of Fame tight end back. They've got to get, I think, their best receiver in Ricky Pearsall back. And then Brandon Ayuk would be gravy for San Francisco. But all those guys have a chance to come back this season. When all those guys are back for the 49ers, yes, this offense can be elite. Can the 49ers defense be a top 20 defense? I don't know. We'll see what moves they make and how much growth the rookies make. But I'll tell you what, one other thing, the math has completely changed for the 49ers with Eddie Pinheiro. Now, you saw it firsthand in this game yesterday, right? You saw that the 49ers last year in Tampa lost 9 points on Jake Moody misses. Eddie Pinheiro, the new kicker, who, by the way, is number 2 all-time in field goal percentage now. He passed Justin Tucker with his first make from 52 yards. He is a damn machine. Everything that this guy kicks, and he's 15 of 15 now on field goals in a 49ers uniform, everything that he kicks splits the uprights. You can count on those points. I'll knock on wood because I know there's some superstition here. But Eddie Pinheiro changed the 49ers math. That would have been a blowout with Jake Moody's struggles in Tampa Bay last year. They probably wouldn't have even trusted Jake Moody had they been behind in the game last year. I know they led last year, and Moody was just unable to build the lead for the 49ers to a comfortable place, and then they had to win dramatically. He did hit the game winner, but it was after those 3 misses. Eddie Pinheiro, this is different, though, with this guy. And if now that they have him, they have competent special teams, passable special teams. That's worth several points a game. So they've lost obviously efficiency on the defensive side of the football, but if that offense can play at an elite level, if special teams can give them a positive that it didn't used to give them, it used to be a negative, then there is cushion for that defense to be a below average unit. And again, at least give the 49ers a chance to head to playoffs. You know, the expected points in this game, the offense was negative 5.4, which isn't good. The offense was in the minus, and we know that they threw a couple interceptions, and we know that they're struggling to run the ball. We can talk about all those things, but it's not horrific. The defense, though, was horrific. It was the worst outing of the season, minus 15.9 expected points on defense. But listen to this, special teams for the 49ers, plus 6.7, or even plus 6.8, 6.77. They got a full touchdown of positive value over the Buccaneers on special teams, essentially erased the struggles of the offense. And again, the offense had a lot of plus plays, and I think the offense, you think about who they're getting back this season, and you can have high hopes for the offense. A special teams, which now has delivered plus figures in 4 of its past 5 games. It's been in the positive 80% of the time since Eddie Pinheiro joined this team. They're negative 10.3 in week 1 with Jake Moody. But they've been in the positive for every game except for the Jacksonville game, which was the punt return for Jacksonville. That special teams changes the math for the 49ers. It is literally the reason why they can still be contenders for a playoff spot. They can still make this season entertaining and fight, even without Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. So, no, the 49ers aren't going to wave the white flag. That's not what professional sports is about. The sun has risen again, and San Francisco is going to be figuring things out moving forward. I still think that the trade deadline is an opportunity to potentially make this team better. I'm not only thinking about 2025, I'm thinking about the future in 2026. When I talk about Quincy Williams and Jermaine Johnson, I'm talking about guys who I know fit Robert Saleh's system, who I know are under contract through 2026. That gives the 49ers flexibility. That gives them some future-facing focus. You look at Nick Bosa, you look at Fred Warner. Those are players who aren't getting younger, but we're going to get the firm prognosis for both of these guys. I want to hear on how Bosa's doing in his initial recovery too, but both should be back next season. And I think the fact that they suffered catastrophic injuries this season only heightens the urgency to set this team up for a true run to get these guys a prime chance at the hardware at the Lombardi Trophy in 2026. I mean, the NFL moves so quickly, but these are top-notch players who have shown the ability to put the 49ers in position to win it all. Obviously, circumstances dictated that they didn't win it all when they had that chance, but we know they're good enough, right? And simultaneously, guys like Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams won't be getting any younger. They'll also age one more year. Now the rookies, you've got to hope that blossoming process starts to pick up some of the slack of any potential slowdown. But I think that you still have a couple-year window here, especially given the level McCaffrey's playing at. He's been awesome for the 49ers. Just doesn't have any running room. But in the receiving game, you can see that he still has all the juice that is necessary. So you've got to continue working with the window that you have if you're the 49ers. It does come down, though, to some of that offensive health. I was watching the tape, and the first touchdown, remember the 49ers spotted Tampa 7 points in this game. Tampa blitzed. It was a hot route for Mac Jones. He had to throw. Kyle Shanahan said that the receiver busted the route, so I'm thinking that Kendrick Bourne broke in instead of out, and that led to the pick, which was almost a pick six. But Vildor, the corner, that's the same guy who had the ball hit off his helmet on the famous ladybug catch for Brandon Ayuk in the NFC Championship game. So this time he couldn't get away from the turf monster. He stumbled 2 times, and it didn't really matter because they scored a couple plays later anyway. I don't count that against the 49ers defense. That's just, if it's Kendrick Bourne's fault, it's Kendrick Bourne's fault. But then he turned around and kept the 49ers in that game with his explosive receiving, his second straight 142-yard performance. He had never been above 100 yards in his entire career prior to the past 2 weeks, and it's been 142 yards twice. I mean, the way that Kendrick attacks the football when it's in the air, he's got the big mitts, right? The big gloves. I'm just saying big hands. And he drives toward the football. Kyle Shanahan actually says that's why he dropped a couple of those passes against Jacksonville in that loss for the 49ers, because he's so aggressive with his hands that sometimes it I guess he mistimes it when he's trying to pluck that ball out of the air. But quarterbacks love throwing to him for that reason. Yesterday, he didn't drop a pass. He might have screwed up the route at the start, but 5 for 142 for Kendrick Bourne. But big picture, 49ers spot Tampa 7 points, yet they're still in this football game. There are 2 plays, I think, that were very, very close call plays that if they go the other direction, the 49ers are in the driver's seat to win this game despite losing Fred Warner. The 3rd and 14, Baker Mayfield running like crazy, and the false start for Dominic Pooney. 49ers are driving, trying to get back in the football game, and Dominic Pooney, maybe they're not in the driver's seat if this goes well, but they at least take Tampa to very, very deep water, which they weren't quite able to do. It's, Jake Tonjes catches a screen, and instead of putting a juke move on, he tries to run through a defender, and he ends up about a yard short of the first down. And Ton just looks over down to the chains, and he's upset at himself for not putting on a juke move, for being short of the first down. And that ended up costing the 49ers because they ran a sneak with Mac Jones. It didn't quite get there. So they line up for another one on 4th down, and Pooney moves early. And it was representative of the struggles up front. We're going to talk about the O-line now, but it was representative of some of the mistakes that offensive line made. That pushed the 49ers back. And then I get it. Mac Jones missed the easy first down throw to Jake Tonjes, and he tried to go downfield deeper to Juwan Jennings, and instead, and it was intercepted, and that was it for the 49ers. I think, was it Dean that intercepted that pass? Because Jamal Dean had the blitz as well early in this game. But long story short, it was an O-line mistake that forced Mac Jones into the situation where he had to be thinking about pushing the ball downfield because the quarterback sneak didn't work. Dominic Pooney was a really, really fine player for the 49ers last year. He's struggled to open this season. The metrics have been significantly worse for Dominic Pooney. I know that late last year there were some adjustments the defensive lines made to him, and the 49ers talked about the need to counter adjust, and he just didn't have enough time at the end of last season to do that. Some of that might still be going on. He also hurt his knee against the Raiders in that preseason. I don't know if that has had any lingering effects, but Pooney did not have a good game yesterday. And Vita, it's tough against Vita Vea. Vita is 347 pounds. There was a play early on where he just split Pooney and Brendel and drove both of them backwards. And then when we get to Brendel, to me, there's just a lot of lazy blocks that I'm seeing from Jake Brendel in space. So a lot of people will say, oh, he's getting driven back. There have been times when he got driven back. And I talked about the Vita Vea play yesterday, but the most damaging Jake Brendel plays yesterday came when he was out in space, and all he had to do was somewhat obstruct Levante David on a Christian McCaffrey screen, and just wasn't able to do it. He's kind of stuck in quicksand. And Brendel, his athleticism should be his calling card. Levante David just scurried right around him and got Christian McCaffrey. And if you're the one guy that is capable of giving Christian McCaffrey the space that he needs, you've got to stick on that block. You've got to find a way to keep Levante David blocked. I know Levante's a great player, future Hall of Famer, but he's not young anymore. It's not like he's this spry 24-year-old linebacker. He's somebody you have to find a way to keep him blocked. And then the holding penalty later on. Christian is carrying 7 guys on his back, and it's nullified because Brendel just kind of lazily reaches his arm out. You just can't have those mistakes. if you're an offensive lineman. And a lot of people about the pressure from Tampa, and I get it. Colby, they need Ben Barch back. They need at left guard, and I get that Vita Vea did push the interior of that line, but straight up pass protection against four-man rush wasn't terrible for the 49ers yesterday. Where the Bucks got San Francisco was with all those blitzes. Like, they had key blitzes. You know what I don't think has been playing well is Luke Farrell, the tight end acquisition. And it just highlights how much the 49ers need George Kittle back. Jamel Dean, the corner, came on a blitz in the first half where he just ran right around Luke Farrell and just drilled Mac Jones. It forced a fumble that I think Farrell himself fell on. But it's like, man, it's one thing if you're asking the tight end to block a defensive end, that's really tough. But if he can't block the corner blitz that he knows is coming, if he's not quick enough to get out, and who is going to block the cornerback on that blitz? I mean, 49ers literally had protection set in place for that Todd Bowles blitz, and he was untouched, right? A lot of other times you let the blitzer come in, and against the Bowles defense, that's going to happen multiple times in a game. But the quarterback has either got to release the ball quickly or he has to be able to move away from it. And that's the one area where Mac is most limited, right? He doesn't have Brock Purdy's mobility, and you could see why the 49ers have Purdy in as their franchise quarterback. All you had to do is look at the other side of the field yesterday in Baker Mayfield and his escapability on the play that tipped the scales in this game. 49ers didn't have that at QB. Now, Mac deserves all the flowers. He had to take an injection, an oblique, pain-killing injection just to play in this game. He is tough as hell. He's a warrior. He has the respect of that locker room. But the truth of the matter is that he just doesn't move as well as Brock Purdy. And in a game like yesterday's, where those blitzes are going to come heavy from a team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think Purdy's mobility is absolutely necessary. I mean, just look at how the 49ers beat Tampa Bay 3 previous times in a row. Purdy's first career start against Brady. Then 2023, Ayuk deep ball. 2024, last year, that was Purdy off schedule. We could go back to that George Kittle play. He's running around. I think that came against the blitz, but he's definitely came against pressure, and he's running around in the backfield, uncorks one, back of the end zone to Kittle. Those were all off-schedule plays because when a blitz comes, there's at least one fewer defender on the back end. So if the quarterback can just buy an extra second, somebody's going to be open, maybe even wide open, and that's what Purdy can really take advantage of, right? So I think that's one thing the 49ers were quite obviously missing yesterday, and that's not taking anything away from Mac Jones. He is who he is. He went 27 of 39, 347 yards. This next week, the 49ers should at least get back George Kittle. I think they might get back Ricky Pearsall, and it's TBD on Brock Purdy. And to be honest, it's also TBD on the Mac Jones status. We're probably going to hear more from Kyle Shanahan a little bit later today. Kyle will be able to give us the 49ers full injury report. And, Mac, he got sacked 6 times. He got hit again yesterday. So knock on wood that nothing does pop up, but Mac was already struggling to get through last week. And the 49ers don't want to put Brock Purdy back out there until he's 100% healthy. But against Jacksonville a few weeks ago, they didn't have much of a choice because Mac was more hurt than he was. So we'll see where they're at quarterback, and we'll see how Purdy's recovery is going. One thing with Brock is that after this game against Atlanta, the 49ers played 2 on artificial turf, Houston and New York, Met Death Stadium, as I like to call it. So do you want Purdy to return on grass or turf? Now, you don't rush him just so he could return on grass. I get that. But if all things are even, if he's already fully healthy, then it lines up for him to come back on the natural grass on Sunday Night Football against the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm actually really, really interested to see how this goes. I'm also interested to see if Ben Barch is close to coming back for the 49ers. I doubt that the pressure numbers and that kind of stuff is ready yet, but it is worth taking a look here on Pro Football Focus for you guys so we can get the exact tally. You have to watch the tape, but their grades are still pending review, but maybe we could see some of them. No, we can't see anything on the initial count. And I'll go over that in a subsequent show later today. You guys know me. I'll analytically delve through absolutely everything, and there's a lot to go through. But the the pressure numbers, I just don't think that people read what the offensive line is doing correctly when there's a lot of blitzes. There was a lot of pressure that the 49ers yesterday needed to beat with either escapability or quick release, and then they couldn't beat it. And then there were times, when Vita Vea wrecked shop for the 49ers in the middle. So it was by no means uh, a consummate effort from the 49ers. There were a lot of problems for San Francisco, which is why we saw some of those drives stall out for the 49ers. And of course, they're not running the football with the explosiveness they want to. That was the number one run defense in football. I thought that was actually one of the better running performances for San Francisco. They had a good rushing success rate in that game yesterday, but they are missing the leverage that George Kittle brings them. Teams are still teeing off on the run on running plays because Luke Farrell, let's be honest, like he's not. They might like him run blocking, but he's not threatening anybody in the pass game. And George Kittle will threaten you in the pass game when he gets down in a 3-point stance to block, and it causes a defense to think twice, think three times, and they're destabilized from the very snap. You've got leverage over the defense. I still think the 49ers should be using Kyle Juszczyk more in the pass game while Kittle is out. If there's, I think Kyle Shanahan is calling really good offensive games right now. Don't get me wrong, but I think that's one little efficiency the 49ers might be leaving on the table. George's return is going to be huge for the 49ers. George and Purdy, this offense is going to look completely different for San Francisco. Defensively, Tatum Bethune is now in that Mike spot. If Quincy Williams comes over, maybe Quincy takes that spot. I think Quincy might be more of a weak side guy. Well, I don't know how the 49ers would play this if they did bring a veteran over. Maybe you do want somebody like Tatum Bethune to stay there with the radio in his helmet, because he's done it throughout all of training camp. And a lot of this is a developmental look for the 49ers now that Warner is out. Tatum had 10 tackles yesterday to lead the 49ers. Upton Stout had 5, and then Marquise Siegel 4, D. Winters 4. I just look at the top tacklers there, and I could identify missed plays from all of them, especially from Stout, Siegel, and Winters, presuming that Winters is the one that failed to pick up Cameron Johnson on the motion. And that was the most glaring, oh my goodness, they missed Fred Warner play, right? Because it was a motion play where you have to communicate and say, okay, this guy has to, it's your job to pick up the in motion wide receiver. And Cameron Johnson hadn't had a target all season yet up until that point. And I think it was D. Winters who needed to trail Cameron Johnson up the sideline, and he didn't. And it was a busted coverage, and he was wide open. And then Upton Stout roughed the passer as well, but it didn't end up mattering on the play because they scored anyway. But it was it was definitely a communication breakdown on that coverage. Now, the Tez Johnson deep touchdown, that to me that was alarming for the 49ers. Marquise Siegel has given up more yardage in coverage than any other safety in the league. He had already given up the most entering that play, and Baker Mayfield looked him off. Now, that's a rookie growing moment. Baker Mayfield's great with his eyes, scanning back and forth, and he was able to get that one over the top of Marquise Siegel because he shifted him out of position. But it just can't happen. If you're the single high safety, you can't let a post get behind you. And Marquise Siegel let Tez Johnson get behind him. Siegel's got 4.3 speed. I know Tez is fast as well, but Siegel has 4.3 speed. 4.3 speed means don't let guys get behind you. That's why they're putting you back in that spot instead of Jair Brown. So that to me was really, really tough for the 49ers. Siegel, I thought when Mustafa came back yesterday, but he didn't get a full snap load, and Mustafa's going to continue working in. And they didn't play Pinnock yesterday, which was interesting. We talked about potential trade machinations, and right now the calculus might have changed on that, and that was just speculation from me before the game. But I mean, you've got to be better at safety if that front seven is as damaged as it is for the 49ers, right? You've lost two foundational pillars up front in Bosa and Warner. The real weakness right now on the back end is that safety position. I know it's young. I know it's growing. I know they've got stuff in flux with Mustafa coming back, but Baker Mayfield was really able to pick on those guys yesterday. Moving forward, it's Atlanta next week. The 49ers right now, last I checked, these guys are 3-point favorites over the Falcons. And Michael Penix is a statue. He doesn't move very well. The problem is that in a 7-on-7 game with Bijan Robinson and Drake London, the 49ers aren't able to pressure Michael Penix, then that's where the Falcons are going to thrive the most. Atlanta actually playing good defense this year, above average defense. But the 49ers are favored. They're returning home. They're returning guys on offense. There is a good chance that San Francisco is 5-2 when we are talking at this time next week. And there's a good chance that they'll then be favored against Houston and favored against the New York Giants. Like, this team can be 7-2. They could also lose 3 straight. Don't get me wrong. This league is really tough. But there is every reason for the 49ers to continue competing, taking this week by week, getting guys back, doing whatever they need to move forward and fight. This is what football's about. Again, the sun has risen. The trade deadline is still about 3 weeks away. There are players out there who could potentially make the 49ers better in 2025 and 2026. But irrespective of that, the 49ers still have a formula to at least give these young guys on defense a playoff game this year. Just fight all you can through this schedule to make it into the tournament, see what happens, but at the very least, get some experience in the playoffs, because you can't only think about this in a 2025 vacuum. I think you owe it to Fred Warner to not think about this in a 2025 vacuum, because he and Bosa aren't going to be back in this year. So you owe it to those guys to build the reserve, build the gold reserve that you can then deposit or use for 2026. So that's how San Francisco has to look at this. Always remember, elite offense, passable defense, smoke and mirror your way into things. This is why you brought Robert Saleh in, and then special teams, positive efficiency on that side of the ball. They picked up a touchdown worth of points on special teams yesterday. It changes the math for the 49ers. It should make this continually entertaining as we move forward. So it's a boxing match. It's a war out that you take the punch in the gut, but you've got to get right back up. You got to smile and keep on swinging. That's where the 49ers are as I leave Tampa Bay.